This winter, I set out on a mission. What are the best places in the United States to go snowboarding? For most of my life, I've snowboarded the rolling foothills of the East Coast, where most of the challenge comes from not even having enough snow to cover our trails. I've been sliding down hills for the past 15 years, but I've only ventured to the majesty of the Western Rockies once before to snowboard, and I wanted to try it again in a big way this season. I wanted to test my skills and witness sights that I've never seen before on a mountain. So a plan was hatched. Build my truck into a go-anywhere, camp-anywhere vehicle, snag an icon pass, and go have an adventure of a lifetime. So come join me on this trip across 4,000 miles, 5 ski resorts, and 21 days to find the best lines the mountains of the States have to offer. Starting the journey is always the hardest. Venturing out into uncertainty, leaving the comforts of home, your family, and your job behind almost makes the journey seem undoable at first. And truth be told, this trip may not have even happened for me if I wasn't given the right push to get it started. Which is why our story actually begins in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to film one of my favorite sports for a documentary I'm part of. That's a story for another day. Back to the task of pursuing the Rockies. After recovering from a grueling 3 days shoot. After Tulsa, I made a big push for the Colorado border. Anyone who's been that way knows that not much beyond cornfields and nasty storms are about the only company joining you on the endless miles of I-70. I was looking forward to getting to Colorado, as this was really in my mind what signified the beginning of my exploring. It would also be the first test of my rig to see if my setup would work as I dreamed it would. But really, I was more excited that I was going to be making breakfast in the morning. I know it's very YouTube-y, filming yourself, cooking, and then eating breakfast, but hey, I wanted to try it. This is a voyage of discovery, after all. It was nice to begin the trip by taking my time and enjoying the morning, with no other focus than the task at hand. It's doing the small stuff like this that reminds me these are the reasons we work so hard, to be able to live these kind of lifestyles. Philosophy pondered, breakfast devoured, and camp packed away, it was time to reach the main event. Words to those who don't like to make sophisticated travel plans. Do not make Summit County your destination to try and overnight camp during the winter. Due to my lack of planning, I failed to research that all of the state parks were closed for the season, which was my main plan for camping on the road. And while there may have been places to boondock the truck for the night, my purpose for this trip was more to go snowboarding than it was to camp. So with the goal of not getting towed away in the middle of the night, I had to tap out and stay at a hotel for this first location. The next morning, I woke up feeling a bit nervous about the day. Since the last time I'd visited the Rockies, I forgot about its main challenge, especially in Colorado, the altitude. Living at only 1,000 feet above sea level meant that suddenly jumping to 10,000 feet above left me out of breath even doing just the most simple movements. But despite all the physical challenges, Copper had gotten several inches of fresh snow, and I intended to make the most out of them. This mountain was tough for me. There was a lot of physical exhaustion on my part, as I had to walk to access certain areas of the mountain. Pair that with certain areas like the Three Bears lift and accompanying bowls not getting a lot of coverage, made for a very slow and bumpy first day. But when I switched to a different bowl, where the sun managed to break through and warm up the fresh powder, I began to feel the flow and understand what draws people to this mountain. All said and done, it was a great reintroduction to what the mountains had in store, and it was a great reminder not to overestimate my abilities and not underestimate the challenges of the terrain. Copper complete, on to the next leg of the journey. After I find a new selfie stick for my Insta360. Our next stop is actually just down the road at Vail, as I had set up an interview for another documentary project. The interview was at the Colorado Snowsports Museum to talk to the experts about how the ski industry began and how it got to where it is today. Shooting projects with just one person is hard. It requires a lot of focus on a bunch of different areas that entire departments of people can be devoted to on bigger projects. But that wasn't going to stop me from getting a good start to this new project. Not to mention that the museum and the staff are hidden gems in this region. I highly recommend stopping in if you're in the area. With a successful shoot and no broken bones to speak of, it was time to leave Colorado for the mountains of Utah. Utah is very special to me. My favorite national parks and some of my best moments outdoors have been experienced here. So I came into Salt Lake City with high hopes, and the mountains of Snowbird did not disappoint. This was easily the best stop of the trip. The coverage was great, the conditions were as prime as any boarder could ask for, and I could actually breathe on these mountains. This felt like the reason I came out here, to feel like I was floating amongst the clouds. Woo! These are the days we wish would never end, and those who have experienced days like this know you'd trade anything in the world just to stay in these moments. Sadly, nothing stops the sun from setting, but it had just set on the best day of snowboarding in my life. It was a privilege to experience it, and I will definitely be returning to Snowbird one day. Jumping from the high of the trip to the lowest point. Now, I'm not going to get melodramatic and say that this is the worst day of boarding I've ever had, so I'll just say that the factors in play for this day just didn't lead to a great experience. All the snow at Brighton had been tracked out, the mountain was particularly cold, and no sun made for a surface more akin to ice skating than snowboarding down a slope. Not to mention that having to hike for an hour to get to the base didn't start things off well for me. On a different day, I might have had a different opinion, but this is the day I was there, so I don't. Maybe next time. Utah in the books, this marked the halfway point of the trip, and I turned my trek north once again in search of America's most popular ski resort. Jackson Hole was an interesting experience. This spot, more than any other one that I'd visited, had the most reputation going into it. I'd heard locals from Utah resorts tell me that Jackson was near vertical, and it was a tough mountain to master. And sure enough, they were spot on. The same problem I ran into with Brighton, I had with Jackson as well. Lack of fresh snow, cold temperatures, and not much sun made for an icy experience. But the main difference here was that Jackson was much bigger, so at least I wasn't on top of people trying to make my way down. On top of that, the views also make for a really good reason to stay down for a little longer when you inevitably spill out from these runs. Funny enough, Jackson got hit with a massive storm only 3 days after my visit there, so much so that the mountain was having a hard time managing it. This is another one I'll just have to revisit in its prime. Also, I bravely elected not to go down Corbett's. Maybe I'll ditch the cameras next time, lest I get impaled while being stupid enough to think I could actually land that jump. On second thought, maybe not. Jackson conquered and a substantial amount of my money siphoned from me. I was starting to be ready for this trip to come to a close. But not before getting to experience probably the best spur-of-the-moment decision I made during the trip. Due to a myriad of weather and road conditions, my journey took a small pause in the tourist town of West Yellowstone. Blocked from traveling east, north, or south for at least a day, I had to find a way to fill some time. And anyone who's from the west knows that there's only one way to get around when the main roads are closed. There's a snowmobile rental shop quite literally around every corner in this town. So with a day to kill and trails to be blazed, I went to see what this sport was all about. Coming from motorcycles, this felt like very familiar territory to me. Touring the backcountry of Montana on these machines is one hell of a way to enjoy the day. Plus, it's about the only way to see Yellowstone in the winter, as I came to find out. Although the view at the top was a total whiteout, I still enjoyed getting to see this beautiful state in a fashion uniquely suited to it. By the next day, the roads were clear enough to keep pushing north. If you've ever heard of the expression called kismet, this is what that felt like. And if you haven't, well, look it up. I'm sure you've experienced it too. On to the grand finale. And when I say grand, I certainly mean it. Big Sky got its name for a reason, and it sure does live up to the namesake. While the roads were clear, that didn't stop the snow from coming down thick. We were constantly getting fresh powder as the day went on. Perfect conditions to experience the country's biggest mountain. There was no shortage of variety to explore, and with 2 days to scope the mountain, I don't know if I ever took the same line twice. And while the intensity may not have been as present like it was in Wyoming, there were still plenty of areas that made me grip my camera pretty tight on the descent. There's definitely something here for everyone, and I think that's what puts this mountain in such high standings when people consider making the voyage out west. Big Sky was a beautiful finale to this grand adventure. This trip served as a reminder to me as to why I live my life the way I do. I've been trying to find my path for the past 6 years for how I want to live and experience the time that I've been given. And I think over the past year, I finally started to come across that path.
Holy shit, that was close.
This voyage was all possible thanks to the people in my life that have given me the opportunity to prove my worth, and I'm going to continue doing that into the future. And if there's anything I'd like to pass to you in closing, it'd probably be this. Be grateful for the time you have and the people in your life, and never be afraid to take a leap into the unknown. You might just discover what you've been looking for. And if you've made it this far, I want to thank you for watching. If you want to follow me on this journey of self-discovery and self-establishment, feel free to subscribe for more content like this. It means the world to me when I get a comment saying that something I've done made an impact on somebody. Hope you enjoyed the video, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.